Hello, everyone, and welcome to Technology Tuesday, hosted by Out of the Box Technology. We're excited to bring you these three webinars each and every Tuesday, featuring third-party applications, tips and tricks from in and outside of QuickBooks, and hot topics that our industry is encountering. My name is Jennifer Darachuk, and I am the Marketing Manager here at Out of the Box Technology, and I'll be serving as your moderator today for this session. If you have any questions as we go through the presentation, you can please send those over to me via the question function on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll be sure to address your questions throughout the presentation, and of course, we'll have some time reserved at the end. A little bit about Out of the Box Technology. If you're not familiar with us, you haven't joined us before, we are a full service company with a whole team of QuickBooks experts that do training, integration, hosting, and support surrounding all versions of QuickBooks. We also have a whole bookkeeping team that does bookkeeping services and recurring bookkeeping work. And we have a development team that works on website design, custom app development, data migrations, and more. So today I am super excited to welcome our friends over at TSheets. And on the line today, I have both Danny and Debbie, and they are just going to really dive into TSheets and how it works with QBO and just all the really great benefits of TSheets. I know that we have a lot of clients that use TSheets, and whether you're using it or not, I think that this is going to be a really great session for you today to learn why you should be or how you can take advantage of some of the features that TSheets does offer. So I have our learning objectives here on the screen here today as Debbie goes through and Danny kind of explains a little bit about TSheets that hopefully will address all of these for you, and this will be a great beneficial webinar. These learning objectives are aligned with our new ability to offer continuing professional education for our Technology Tuesdays. So a little bit of information on that. If you haven't joined a Tech Tuesday in the last couple of months, we are really excited to be able to offer this value to our webinars now. So with that, you'll see learning objectives on our sessions as well as poll questions throughout the presentation. So make sure to take a second and answer those poll questions. It'll just really provide some valuable feedback to our presenters about where you're at and how they can just best tailor this presentation going through for you, and then hopefully follow up with you afterwards to get you started on TSheets or answer some more specific questions. Also, after this session is over, you will get an email with a survey about how we did today, and you'll also get a link to the recording as this session is recorded, so you can go ahead and watch it back and check in on some things that you might have missed or share with your team. So with all those housekeeping things taken care of, I am going to introduce and hand things over to Danny as he is going to kick us off about TSheets, and then Debbie will dive right into the tool. So Danny, I will hand things right over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Let me get my screen share going here. One moment. All right. And yeah, thank you so much for having us. Always super excited to be here for a Technology Tuesday and love working with out-of-the-box technology. So again, thank you so much for having us here. And actually, before we jump in, why don't we actually start with our first polling question, if we could get that loaded.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe our first, yeah, go ahead.
Yep. So our first poll question, I'll go ahead and launch that right now. And it's just plain and simple. Do you track your time in your company, and how do you do that? So I'll give everyone a couple of seconds here to answer that first poll question and kind of gauge where everyone is at.
Perfect, thank you. And yeah, this question is just kind of have an understanding, kind of know our audience a bit. It can also help us as we're presenting to know what you guys are currently doing, and we'll try to really tailor it based on the majority and make it applicable for you guys.
Perfect. So I'll give that just a couple more seconds. We have almost 100% of the audience has entered in their answer for this poll question about do you track your time in your company? And I'm seeing a trend here, Danny. I'm not sure if it shows on your screen as well. A lot of people are answering that yes, they're doing it manually. We have 65% saying yes, they do it manually, and 21% say yes, and it's automated, and 14 say not applicable. So maybe we're not tracking time yet.
Awesome.
So yeah, so there's those final responses there.
Yeah, great to see. So as you're learning about TSheets today, kind of compare that to your current method, especially everybody that's doing manually, and just think if it could save you some time. There might be some value here as you're learning the product, and there might be some potential to really start using our product. So, hey, I won't spend too much time on this presentation. I know Debbie's got a lot of exciting things to talk about, and some of you may already know TSheets and really want to get into some new things for you. So just quickly, this is TSheets. We're here in Boise, Idaho. That's our well, I would say new building, but now it's actually almost filled up, and we're building a second building here. Going to be right across the street. So this is already housing 450 people or so, and with our new building, I think we're going to be able to go up to like 900. So growth has been really fun, and it's been really fun to see for myself and Debbie, who are, employees number 50 or so, and here we are now. A little bit about who is TSheets. Again, for those of you that already know this, sorry if this is a little redundant, but we're an online web-based time tracking and scheduling software. We actually got acquired by Intuit, by QuickBooks, about a year and a half ago. And with that comes all these great integrations. Everything's a little more in-depth. You'll see a lot of that today with how solid our integration is. And I think you guys will be really happy with what you're seeing there. We're still doing weekly updates all the time. We really do listen to our clients. So if you're like, I can't use TSheets because it doesn't have this, or I'm using TSheets, but I really wish it had this feature, we really are always listening and always evolving. So let us know, please share. There's a chat, there's comments where you can let us know why this would or isn't working for you, and let us know. We really do listen. And you can see that by the reviews we have. This number may be outdated, but 15,000 plus 5-star reviews, and a lot of that comes with our amazing support team that really takes care of yourself or clients. What will I learn today? I know we kind of saw these learning objectives, but the main things are why use TSheets, how TSheets has this communication with QuickBooks and what that looks like, and then of course how to run payroll, create invoices, and use projects for job costing. And I know I am talking quite a bit about QuickBooks. Now we do have a lot of other integrations. If you're like, I don't use QuickBooks, that's fine. We can discuss what other product you're using and see if we work with that. But today this will be a little bit more focused on the integration, seeing some more in-depth things you wouldn't normally see unless you're already kind of a client of both. And I don't expect you to be able to read this. This is craziness. This just gives us an idea of the payroll process without TSheets. So, I'm an employee. I write it on a piece of paper at the end of the day or end of the week, hand that over to a manager who gets that all into a single, maybe Excel spreadsheet. I then finally get that Excel spreadsheet to my payroll person, and they get all those hours entered into payroll, and then we're done, 2-3 hours later. And the process with TSheets can look like this. You integrate with QuickBooks. We pull over your employees. We allow employees to track time in many different ways. You approve that time after a 1 week, 2 week period. You send that time back over to QuickBooks or your payroll provider. You run payroll and you're done. So it can take this 2-3 hour process down to something that takes 10 or 15 minutes, especially once employees really learn the system and are able to continue moving forward. And that's all I really wanted to talk about. Debbie, again, is going to jump in and show us a lot of those learning objectives we've had today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and change presenter to Debbie.
Okay, thanks, Danny. Let me just, which screen am I showing?
I see the one with T-sheets on it.
Okay, good. Thank goodness.
When you have 5 monitors, it makes it difficult.
It really does. Normally, okay, wow, sorry. Hi, everyone. This is Debbie, and I've been working with Danny for, goodness gracious, like 4.5 years now. We go way back, and today we are talking about, honestly, my favorite topic in the world of TSheets, and that might make me sound like a bit of a strange person, but I really love the integration between TSheets and QBO, and that's what I get to show you today. So I am super, super excited about that. My plan is to do high-level overview of TSheets, how you track time within TSheets, a couple of different reports that we can run, and then we're going to get into the good stuff. And that, in my opinion, the good stuff. And that is how we send that time over to QBO. And within QBO, how, where you can find the time. We're going to take a look at how you can create a customer invoice based on the time that was tracked. We're going to take a look at how that time gets into payroll. And also with QBO's new projects functionality, I'm going to kind of show you the little projects dashboard and how those payroll dollars and your receivables for those projects show you how profitable your project is. So I'm really, really excited. I do tend to geek out a little bit on this stuff, not going to lie. And so let's go ahead and dive in. What we're looking at here is the TSheets web dashboard. So this is just when you log into TSheets on the computer, what you get to see. I'm logged in as Raymond in my account. Raymond is the administrator. So he gets to see and do literally everything within that TSheets account. And you can have more than one administrator if you'd like. Okay. Now, when we're integrated with QuickBooks, we can import into TSheets the employees. If you need to track time for contractors that are set up as vendors within QuickBooks, we can import them as well. In our world, but whether they're a W-2 employee or a 1099 contractor, they all end up here in this My Team section on the left. They're all just bodies tracking time, and it looks the same whether they're a W-2 employee or a 1099 contractor. What, of course, looks different is how you pay them, but that all happens outside of TSheets. In our world, they all go on the same list. We can import your customers, your sub-jobs with QBO. We can import projects if you're using QBO's new project functionality. We can import things like your service items, which are usually tasks. We can even import your classes if you need to do class tracking. All right, so there's a lot that we can import. You don't have to import all of those things, but those are just the options that are out there. And you might think, my goodness, it's awfully complicated for our poor employees to track time toward customers and sub-jobs and service items and whether or not that time is billable, and that's just too much. But I'm going to show you how absolutely easy it is. So in my account, I have here the time clock. This is it's like a timer. It captures the very accurate start and stop times for the work that's being done. Now, I'm tracking time to customers, sub-jobs, service items, and whether or not I want to be able to bill my customers for that time. Again, might seem really complicated, but let's take a look at how easy it is. So what Raymond can do is either go down the list visually or use the little search feature here to find the job or customer and sub-job that he needs to track time toward. So let's say he's tracking time toward Juniper Lane, and then maybe it's his project 2017. He just hits clock in. And then down here toward the bottom, it's remembering the last service item he selected, but he can change up that service item if he needs to. And I'm also tracking whether or not the time is billable. And then we also have this free text notes field if he needs to write some notes about what he did today. But easy as that, just a couple clicks of a button, we've captured customer, sub-job, service item, and whether or not the customer should be billed for the time. Pretty easy. This functionality is available on the website, which is what we're looking at. It's available on the mobile app, and it's also available on our time clock kiosk. So this functionality is available across all time entry points for TSheets. It's super easy to do. Now, let's say that Raymond is done working on this Juniper Lane project 2017, and he's ready to switch to something else. All he needs to do is either, again, use that search bar. Maybe he's going to look for, maybe he's going to do this Peaceful Cove testing project. He just hits the switch button. He can go ahead and, in this case, I only have one service item assigned. So this is another one of the beautiful things with TSheets. If there are certain jobs where only specific service items ought to be used, you can assign those service items or tasks to the customer or sub-job. You can also assign those service items or tasks to the individual employees. The beauty of this is that it really reduces the risk of that employee choosing the wrong thing. So when Raymond selected Peaceful Cove sub-job testing project, the only service item available is this general office work. And then with the billable yes/no option, I've said that all of the time for this particular sub-job is billable. So yes is the only option. Again, we're minimizing the risk of Raymond picking the wrong thing. Now over here on the right-hand side, as Raymond is switching around from job to job, this who's working window is updating as well. This tells me who's currently on the clock, and it looks like all of my employees are currently on the clock. And it tells me what they're working on, how long they've been working today. So he just switched over into testing project, but he's been on the clock for an hour and 20 minutes so far today. If I need to, I can make edits using this little edit function right there within that who's working window. Managers and administrators and people with certain custom permissions are able to make edits to time. Now, another beautiful thing that we have going on here with this who's working window, not only is it telling us who's on the clock and what they're working on, but if the employees are using the mobile app, we can capture GPS points. So this little icon means that these people are clocked in on the mobile app, and I can get a GPS point on them. So to do that, I just click that little button, and I can pull up a map of where Dembe has been so far today. So he clocked in over here, just a basic Google map. I could drill in closer if I wanted to. I can switch the satellite view. And if this is the job site, then great. He clocked in at the right place. If this is his home, then I know that he clocked in when he was at home, and that's maybe not so good. So the GPS maps track their location when they're on the clock. It's not tracking them on their personal time, only when they're clocked in. So only when they're on their employer's time is it tracking them. So I can see where Dembe clocked in, where he traveled to, and where he is now, which is pretty great functionality. This map option actually shows you everybody who's clocked in on the mobile app all in one map. That's really handy. If you have a client that maybe is, or you are like an HVAC business, for example, we're coming into winter time, and maybe you've got somebody whose furnace went out and they have like an infant in the home, so we need to get somebody out there really fast. I remember when my furnace went out years ago, they asked, are there any infants or elderly in the home? I think they prioritized that a little bit higher, than perhaps somebody else. And I did have an infant in the home at the time. And so with this map, you can see everybody at once and then maybe reroute whoever's closest and is getting done with their current job quickly. So that's pretty great functionality as well. Now, if it's the case where you don't really care too much about the employees capturing those start and stop times, we have what we call the manual time card. This works and looks much like a spreadsheet. I find that this is used a lot for engineering firms, architecture firms, law firms, where they need to know what how much time they spent on any given customer or project, or in the case of a law firm, legal matter, but they don't necessarily care about the start and stop times. So with this, we just hit no customer, we choose whomever the customer might be, and then we can go ahead and manually put in, well, I spent 3 hours and 30 minutes on this particular job today. Go ahead and select our service item and whether or not that's billable. And you guessed it, I can't type. A notes field, free text notes field where they can put notes about what they did today. That note attaches to that specific timesheet. It is different from the note up here on his Juniper Lane work. Okay. So this is called the manual time card, which is really great, again, for those businesses that maybe have a lot of salaried workers. They're not too concerned about capturing start and stop times, but they do need to know what customers or jobs they spent their time on. Timesheets list right next door to that. Another place where you can see those GPS maps. This is also a historical list of every single timesheet I ever created in this account, going back about 5 years. Now, I think I have in here, if I can find it, oh, maybe not. I thought I had a timesheet in here where somebody had used the kiosk the other day, but I could be wrong. One of my coworkers was showing the kiosk, but I can't find it now. I apologize. The neat thing about our time clock kiosk is that it captures or it can capture a photo upon clock in and clock out. So let's say you have a manufacturing business or maybe an auto body shop or restaurant or retail where you want the employees to just be able to all clock in one device. Well, time clock kiosk, great option for that. The employees, when they clock in, you can capture a photo. When they clock out, you can capture a photo. Make sure that the right employees are clocking in and we don't have any buddy punching going on. Because if I tried to clock in for Danny, the time clock kiosk would send an alert to my manager saying that this doesn't look like Danny. Actually, would send it to his manager. Or if he tried to clock in as me, we'll go that route. Maybe he tried to clock in as me and say, this doesn't look like Debbie. We both have short hair, but mine happens to be kind of blue right now. His is blonde. We don't look the same. So, so it would send an alert to the manager. And that's one of the wonderful things about time clock kiosk. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to some of the different reports that we can run. And then after some reports, then we'll run another polling question. So first of all, here in our report section, we have about 25 or 30 or so reports that we can run within TSheets. Quite a lot. We're certainly not going over all of them today. That would be crazy, but I want to hit a couple of highlights. One of my personal favorites is the project report. And actually, before I dive into the project report, Jennifer, are there any questions that have come up in the question panel that I can tackle really quickly?
Yeah, Debbie, actually, we have two. And if anyone else has any, just as a reminder, you can go ahead and chat those over. The first one is, can you have more than one administrator or manager that has full access and permissions, or is it just one main person and then you have all your employees?
Great question. And the beauty with TSheets is, yes, you can have more than one administrator if you need to. Absolutely. Administrators have full access to literally everything within the TSheets account. And yes, you can have more than one. You can also set up managers of groups, and those managers have specific expanded permissions for the employees within their group, like the ability to review, edit, approve their timesheets, but they don't have full access to literally everything in the TSheets account. So yes, we do have a variety of different permission levels, and you can have more than one of each of them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. The next question is, can you use the manual time card that you went over as well as the clock in and clock out at the same time, like on the same day? For example, I clocked in for a specific job from 9 to noon, but then throughout the day, I worked 2 hours here and there on another client. So I'm doing that manually. Will those work together and all post to your time card, or do you have to pick one or the other for a day?
That's a fantastic question, and you can mix and match, which is the beauty of it. And in fact, you can clock in on the web dashboard, which is what we're looking at here, and clock out on your mobile app. Or you can clock in on the mobile app and clock out on the kiosk. So you can mix and match your entry methods, and you can also mix and match, for example, here, this Juniper Lane Phase 1, this was a time clock, a timer style in and out entry, and I'm going to go ahead and throw the billable option on there, as is Juniper Lane, which he's currently clocked into, and then I went ahead and manually entered in the Park Center Plaza time. So yes, you can do some with the timer, some with the manual entry. One thing you cannot do in TSheets though is you cannot have two separate timers going at the same time. And the reason for that is because TSheets says, hey, from 9 o'clock to 9:30, I couldn't be literally working on two separate jobs simultaneously. So it won't allow you to have two separate overlapping timer style timesheets, but you can have a timer plus a manual entry. That's not a problem as long as you just don't go over 24 hours in one day.
Perfect. Thank you so much for addressing those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and go over a couple of different reporting options that we have. Again, we have quite a few. We're definitely not going to hit all of them. One of my personal favorites is the project report. With the project report, as with all of our reports, you can choose what type of date range you want to run this for. So by week, by pay period, custom date range is you're putting in your own dates. For the project report, I like to do custom because I like to see greater lengths of time. So maybe I want to know, well, what did I do in Q2? So I'm just going to go June through, got my quarters messed up here, end of September or end of August. Wow. Run the report. Now this is showing me all of the hours that my employees tracked. And then down below, it's giving me these different pie charts, percentage of hours, and then actual hours right down below that. Little pie charts and hours for the customers I track time toward. If my employees are set up into groups or crews or departments, all rolling up into different managers, then you can have a breakdown by group. Team members are my workers. These are my W-2 employees, my 1099 contractors, whomever it is that's tracking time within TSheets. I'm tracking whether or not my time is billable, so I have a yes, no choice on that one. I did do a little bit of class tracking during that quarter and during Q3, and then I'm also tracking service items. So let's take a look at, let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into this. So I see that we have 44% of our time going to one job, which is Meacham Cabin. Well, I happen to know, and I'm going to click on this piece of the pie, that Meacham Cabin has multiple sub-jobs. Okay, so now I'm looking at the sub-jobs for Meacham Cabin, the breakdown of time for each of those. Which employees have tracked time toward that job, which of my team members or workers track time, how much time each. Billable. So not set means my employees didn't work or didn't say yes or no for my billable there. That's kind of curious, but I could look at those timesheets and see what's going on. I had 37% of my hours marked no, 32% marked yes for billable. If my firm is based on billable hours, I have a problem here, and I can see that immediately, which is the nice thing about the visual on this report. I can see which classes I tracked and which service items I tracked. Again, I can dive down deeper into any piece of the pie here. I can also, up above, view those timesheets. I can take a peek at all of the different timesheets that I created for that particular job and the date range I selected, and I can also download that as a PDF and print it out if I need to. Now, if I take off that filter, I'm going to show you one of my favorite things that I can get to from this report, and that is job costing. So within TSheets, we have some very, very basic job costing, and you can run this report at any time, 24/7. It's not dependent on putting the time through payroll first, and it can be just run at any time to give you, again, very basic job costing. I like to include my service item on this particular report. I do want to group them by job code, and I do want to calculate my totals. So I'm going to run that report and see if it'll let me make this wider. Oops. Hold on a sec. Oh, why is it not letting me go wider on that? That's really strange. My computer's being weird for me. I don't like that. Anyway, well, we'll just move on. So here I see my job vocational rehab. I see the employees that track time toward that job. And
Debbie, if you click on the little icon in the bottom right, I think that'll let you expand it.
Oh, thank you, Danny.
You're welcome.
Danny's a lot smarter than me in some things.
That is definitely, well, some things.
In some things, yes.
Not majority, but a couple minor things.
Danny and I actually make a pretty good team because between his brain and mine, we do pretty well. So here I see vocational rehab. I have each of my employees that track time toward that, the different service items, their rate, their hours, the cost, any overtime. And then if I scroll down to the bottom and then over to the far right, I can see that in Q3, I spent about $3,500 on that job. Now you might be wondering, is this, where does this rate come from? Okay, great question for anybody who's actually thinking about that. So where that rate comes from is from within TSheets, you can put a single solitary rate for any given employee. So, for example, let's say that Raymond, maybe his actual pay rate is $50 an hour, but we know that we need to gross up his pay rate by about 50%, that'd be a bit high, to make this report fully burdened, but just say that we are doing that. Then in TSheets, I can say that his hourly rate is 75, and then I know that this report for Raymond's, the dollars we're going to attribute to his work is closer to being fully burdened. Or you can just keep this a non-fully burdened report and put in his true rate of pay. Now, thankfully, these employees never see the rate that you have listed for them within TSheets. Only the administrator can see that. Thank goodness. So if you want, you can gross up the hourly rate you have for them in TSheets and get this report closer to fully burdened. And again, you can run this report at any time and get a good idea of how much you're spending on any of those jobs. I'm going to show you in QBO, though, a much better place to get that job costing report. But this is, I like to think of it as a down and dirty or very basic job costing report that is available. All right. We do have scheduling available within TSheets. We have 2 reports specifically for scheduling. One is scheduled versus worked. Great way to see how many hours your workers actually track toward a specific job versus how many you scheduled for them, to see if they're going way over, coming in way under what you anticipated for the hours. And then this tardies report is a way to make sure that the employees are clocking in on time. If you are a very schedule-based business, for example, restaurants, retail, things like that, you need those people there on time. And so the tardies report can be very helpful to make sure people are clocking in on time. And if they're not, it gets you some good hard data behind, that conversation with that worker about them showing up on time to, when they're scheduled. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit the approvals report next. The approvals report is critical when we're going to be exporting time to QuickBooks or to Gusto for payroll, if you happen to be running your Gusto for payroll, or a few other places that we can export the time to. But especially with QuickBooks, it is critical that you approve the time before it gets exported. Just like all of our other reports, variety of date ranges. I'm going to run this report for last week. Hit run report. Here I see all of my workers' hours, and we do have color coding. Red means they went into overtime, so we call it out very clearly. A ROM had overtime last week. We might want to take a look at that. We also have overtime alerts that you can use within TSheets so that you're aware that a ROM is hitting overtime before you get surprised at the end of the pay period by the fact that they did go into OT. So we can do overtime alerts, and we also call it out in red. Blue means that the worker had some paid time off, sick, vacation, holiday. It's all very customizable within TSheets. Green are just regular hours. So let's take a look here to ROM's hours. I'm going to hit View Details. I can see the jobs he worked on, and then I can see the actual timesheets that he created down below. Now, if I need to, I can make an edit to any one of these timesheets if I have permission. Permission being I'm an administrator or I'm a ROM's manager, I can go ahead and make edits there. So maybe I know that he did not work until almost 7:30 on Thursday of last week. Hit this edit button, and I can change that back. Maybe I know that he was actually off the clock at 6 o'clock. It looks like we missed a couple fields here, so I'm going to go ahead and add those in. There we go. All right, so good. I've adjusted that timesheet, so now we're showing that he got off work at 6 o'clock last Thursday, and that has taken down his overtime by a little bit. Once I know the hours are good, I just hit the Approve button. They're ready to export. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and export Dembe's and Donald's as well. Now you can export those hours from here, or you can go to your QuickBooks button and hit Export All Approved Time. I'm going to go ahead and hit Export from this button. It's going to tell me how many people, and oh, I deleted some hours there. Oh, that's going to be interesting when I try to export them. I've been messing around a lot in my demo account lately and doing some weird things, so this might cause me a little bit of a headache. In real life, I would take a look at what those hours were, but for today, I'm just going to hit export. So this is going to send those hours over to QBO. So let me pop over into my QBO account, and I'm going to pause, Jennifer, because I think this is probably a good time for us to roll another polling question and see if there's questions from the audience.
Absolutely, Debbie. Yep, I will run our next poll question, which is, do you bill clients based on hours worked? And if so, how do you do that? Is it manual? Is it automated? No, you don't bill clients, or just not applicable? We'll run that polling question again. Give just a couple more seconds to let everyone answer. It looks like it's pretty well spread across the board, actually. I'll share the results in a minute here, Debbie, so you can see. But also, while people are answering that, one question that came in is, when a manager edits an employee's timesheet, like you just gave that example before you approved everything, does that employee get some sort of an alert to note that you're not getting as much overtime as you thought you were, sir, or how does that get communicated?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of that, well, there's two different potential answers to that. Okay, so within TSheets, we can turn on something we call DCAA compliance. It's a way to assist with DCAA compliance. If you're not in the government contracting world, DCAA compliance is something that government contractors have to abide by. Within that, there is a provision, though, and we can turn that on in any account, but there is a provision that requires that employees are emailed if an edit is made to their timesheet. If that is not turned on within the account, then it is actually up to the administrator or the managers, your internal processes to determine if you're going to email that employee or not. We can turn that functionality on within TSheets, but it doesn't have to be, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So a lot of that really does fall back on your own internal policies or processes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One big thing with that is you can basically say, I mean, by the time an employee has been entering their time, you can have them submit their time, which is them basically signing off on their hours. If you have to unapprove that time, it can send an email to that employee. So there's a lot of processes to make sure that that employee is aware of what's going on.
Definitely. And then two more questions, if you have a second, we'll address those
Mm-hmm.
before we move on. So
Yeah.
if an employee doesn't specify a job and just clocks in and out for the day,
Mm-hmm.
can a manager or administrator make changes to their time to account for that?
Great question. Now, one of the beautiful things with TSheets is that if we have the functionality turned on that we have, I knew I was going to get some errors there. I'll take a look at them later. If we have the functionality turned on where we have jobs available, current state is you have to clock into a job. You can't not clock into a job if there are jobs available. Now, you can, though, within TSheets, if you don't need to track time to jobs, you can have it so that it's simply clock in and clock out. But if there are jobs available, they will have to clock into a job. Now, if it's the case where maybe there's shop time, where they're not doing something tied to a specific customer, they're showing up at the shop in the morning, they're loading up the truck, they're getting their marching orders for the day, then what we recommend in that case is that you have kind of a generic job called, shop time or office work, or you see I have this sort of generic administrative work here, that we have some sort of generic jobs listed that the employees can utilize if they're not doing work that's customer facing. So if we do have at least one job listed, they will have to clock into a job, but there's sort of generic placeholder jobs you can put in there for things like that shop time, that office time, whatever it is, travel time, for example, or drive time.
Yeah, and then if they choose that, the manager could change that to another job later if they need to. And we could even just have the employees clock in and out on the TSheet side, and you could actually always tie it to a job later on the QuickBooks side. Is that correct, Debbie?
Yes,
Yeah?
that is correct.
Okay.
Yep, you can make edits on the QuickBooks end as well.
Perfect.
Excellent. And then one last question before we dive into QBO here is you talked about the different integrations and whatnot. Does TSheets integrate with Smartsheets as well?
I'm not sure. I've heard of Smartsheets before.
Danny and I are both looking at each other with TSheets has not built an integration with Smartsheets.
Okay.
So from our side, I would say that we don't have that. However, there are a lot of third parties that are building out against our API. So Carbon, for example, is one that they built an integration with TSheets, but they built it from their side, so we don't have a whole lot of information on that. We happen to know that it exists, but there are a lot of others that have built integrations using our open programming interface.
Sure.
So unfortunately, I don't have a solid answer on that one.
Okay.
Sure.
No
And
problem.
if it's something that can accept hours, we can also always look into building out like a flat file integration, a CSV that can upload directly into that software. Obviously, it's not as good as an API integration, but it seems to work very well for the options we've done it for.
Okay, great. And then just while we're talking about that, do you know if it works with Service Titan?
Same answer.
Same answer. Okay. I thought so. I just thought I'd throw it out there in case you knew off the top of your head. Thank you so much. All right. All right.
Absolutely.
Did you get polling data on that last one? I apologize. I know
Yeah,
we
no,
kind of.
I'll pull it back up again for you.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
here's how we ended. Can you see that? The results that came through? Is that showing up on your screen? So it shows that so as far as do you bill clients based on hours worked, we had 35% said yes manually, 29% said yes but automated, and 24% said no.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Fabulous. Okay. Are you guys able to see my screen again?
Yeah, looks great.
Perfect. Okay. So for those 35% that are doing their customer invoicing manually, I'm going to show you something that will probably make you very happy if you're a QBO user. And that is the way that you can get your time very easily and quickly onto customer invoices. So when I exported that time to from TSheets to QuickBooks, where it lands is here in the weekly timesheet. Now, the reason why we put it in the weekly timesheet is that we then have the option to push it to a number of different places. So here's a ROM's time. I proved this a few minutes ago in TSheets. It exported to QuickBooks. I have the travel time. The service travel time is my customer service item. I did mark that billable. The billable rate lives in QuickBooks, not in TSheets. Their pay rate is here for the employee. The number of hours. Okay, so these are all of the hours I just pushed over from TSheets to QuickBooks. Now, any of these hours are marked yes for billable. We will be able to very easily push onto a customer invoice. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So if I go over here, now I like to get to my customer invoices by going to sales and then customers. I know there's a couple different ways you can get there, but I like to go here because I like to point out this lovely little bar graph. So in my TSheets account, all of my billable activities are timesheets, or I'm sorry, my QuickBooks account. In mine, they're all timesheets that I push from TSheets to QuickBooks, marked yes for billable, but I have not yet billed them out. So this shows me 359 unbilled activities. That's 359 timesheets, $114,000. I really need to get some invoicing done, right? Because this is a disaster. I really need to get paid. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So I'm going to go to Juniper Lane, create invoice. On the right-hand side, any billable hours that I have available will show up. So I can just hit add. Now I can add all of them at one time, or I can pick and choose which ones I want to add. So maybe some of these I want to add now, others I'll do later. Good. Here's one with a note on it. So I can pick and choose which of those timesheets I push onto the invoice. So we've got the product and service item. That's what the rate is tied to in QBO. The description, this comes from the notes field on that timesheet in TSheets. So whatever notes they put on their timesheets can flow over here to the invoice if you want. You can also make an edit if you need to. You can even edit the number of hours. So this quantity is the number of hours that were tracked. Now, let's say maybe this particular job on February 4th should have taken, was about a 10-hour job. We came in just under 10, but we're going to round that up. That's fine. You can do that on the invoice. The actual timesheets are preserved with the true time that was tracked, but this just impacts what you invoice your customer. Maybe this particular one should have only taken about 8 hours, but it took 2 hours longer than expected. But we can edit that down if we need to. So you can make edits to your hours here on the invoice. You can make edits to your notes. You can take the note off completely, whatever you want to do, and then get that invoice sent out to your customers. So for those of you that are manually creating your invoices, doesn't this look like a much easier, faster, more efficient way to do that? This is one of the things I really love about the integration between TSheets and QuickBooks, is how we can so easily send the billable time over to QuickBooks and then get it onto an invoice to really cut down on the amount of time that it is taking you to do your invoicing. Now, the service item is something that when we are marking time yes or no for billable and TSheets, we do have to bring your service items over, because your service item is how QuickBooks matches up the rate. That billable rate lives in QuickBooks tied to your service item. TSheets tracks the service item, yes or no for billable, and then it all gets matched up nicely here on your invoicing. This, to me, is one of my favorite functions of the integration between TSheets and QuickBooks. It's fantastic. And then you can see that now my billable activities have dropped down a little bit, and I've invoiced out about $2,000. So I can kind of keep track of how I'm doing on that here. And I have some work to do with getting some invoices done. All right, let's take a look, too, at payroll. So I'm going to go up here to payroll. With the integration with TSheets, one thing that we can do is that we can, on the TSheet side, we'll match up their pay rate or their payroll items. So all of these different payroll items I've created in QuickBooks, those flow over into TSheets, and then I map them to my workers. And if you have a business where prevailing wage applies, or those workers get paid different rates based on what they're doing, we can map the payroll items to the specific service items. So when I'm doing, task 1, whatever that might be, my service items in my account are very generic, but let's say I'm doing task 1, whatever that is, then I get, that's my regular pay rate. But when I'm doing task 2, I get paid, my overtime, my hourly 2 rate, or whatever the case may be. So then when we send the time over here to QuickBooks, it drops into the right bucket. So for example, we have Tom. He has 82.97 regular hours, and he has 4 hours of holiday pay because he tracked PTO within TSheets. So the beauty of it is with TSheets is that we will put the hours into the correct, I don't know if these are really called buckets. It's what I call them because to me these little fields look like buckets. Anyway, so we'll drop it into the correct little buckets, and so it really makes payroll a whole lot easier. So my hours drop into the right spots, review that payroll, get that payroll submitted. Okay, so we just made payroll super easy. We're not having to do any manual entry there either. The hours just flow from TSheets to QuickBooks and then into payroll, and it's just a really smooth, easy process. I absolutely love, love, love it. This is why I geek out on this integration between TSheets and QuickBooks. It makes life so much more efficient. Now, QuickBooks Online recently came out with this projects functionality. One cool thing about the projects functionality is that, so if I'm tracking time to Ashley's project, for example, that comes over into TSheets as a sub-job of, whatever the customer is. In this case, it's Peaceful Cove, and then the sub-job, well, it's Ashley's project. It's a project within QuickBooks. On the TSheet side, it looks like a sub-job, but QuickBooks knows that it's a project versus a sub-job. Any payroll and expenses and all that will go into this cost area, and then the income comes from those comes from the invoices that we generate based on the time, and then QuickBooks will tell us what our profit margin is. So the really great thing about that projects functionality within QuickBooks is it's going to give you really great job costing or project profitability with the margins, and makes it like super easy to see how profitable your project has been. So this is really fantastic functionality that QuickBooks added within like the last 6 or 8 months. I think it's really, really new still. But it's really great when you can track your time toward those projects in TSheets, send it over to QuickBooks, run it through payroll, and then get your project profitability margins. Really easy to see, just right here on this dashboard. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it. All right. I have talked a lot. I've shared a lot. Danny or Jennifer, what have I missed? Or are there more questions, Jennifer, that have come across in that questions panel?
Sure, Debbie, you've done a great job, and I can definitely tell your passion. So thank you so much, seriously. We haven't had any questions in this portion. I think that you're delivering a lot of information, and honestly, it's lovely and it's wonderful. And I think seeing how the two tools talk to each other and just how beneficial that is, I think this has been really, really great. So thank you for sharing your passion and for really diving into this. As far as if you missed anything, I feel like you haven't because you've covered a lot. But Danny, I'll give you the opportunity to kind of jump if there's any areas that she may have missed, and then we'll open it up for a couple more questions if anyone wants to send those in.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I think, Debbie, you've covered everything extremely well. You know this area way better than I do too, so it's always good for me to get my eyes back in the product. I would just say, yeah, I mean, the three main things, if you're integrating QuickBooks and TSheets together, the three main things you're going to see are automation to how payroll ultimately gets ran, because you're tracking those hours in real time. You're going to see invoices be completed a lot faster, so we'll really automate that as well. And ultimately, if you're doing payroll through QuickBooks Online, you're running those invoices through QuickBooks Online. As Debbie showed in this project section, you're going to be getting that true job costing, understanding your profits and losses, and just having a better insight to your business. So it's extremely helpful, and definitely QuickBooks Online is our best integration. I don't think there's even a question about that anymore. So it's just very cool to see it all coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one question that did come in is, do you have to use TSheets to be able to use the project functions here that you explored?
You don't have to, right, Debbie?
Correct. You can use the project functionality directly within QBO. You don't have to use TSheets for it. To get the time tracking piece, though, to get the time tracked toward those projects, you would need to use the time tracking within QBO. It's more manual entry than compared with TSheets. And I don't believe that there's a mobile app function. And to be honest, in the very near future, all time tracking within QuickBooks is likely to be shifted over to TSheets anyway, as TSheets gets more deeply embedded into QuickBooks. I think that that's coming in the near future, but you don't have to use TSheets to use the project functionality. You can definitely set up your projects. You can still get your job costing. You would just need to track your time, or even if you're not tracking your time, at least run payroll through QuickBooks.
Yeah. And I believe you can just turn that on in like the settings if you don't see it
Mhm.
currently.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then once you have it on, you can start using it.
I'm trying to remember where it is. It's been a while since I've turned it on in mine, but oh golly, I should know. Anyway, I think it's in the gear. I would have to look. I'd have to dig a bit.
Huh. Were there any other questions?
Yeah, we did have another question of we don't use QuickBooks Online, so will TSheets still work with the version that we have on our server, or do you have to use QuickBooks Online?
Yeah, we have a wonderful QuickBooks desktop integration. We work well in a server or a hosted environment. It's a little bit different of an integration. If that person's interested, you can send an email. I'll try to get my contact information your way, Danny_Shank at intuit.com. I can even type that in the chat here in a second. But basically, it connects via. It's a direct integration now, and it's actually directly inside a QuickBooks Desktop where you set it up. But it's a good solid integration and something we're still working on. In fact, we updated it this year alone. So
Perfect.
absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, so those seem to be all the questions that have come in. So thank you both so much for your time. Again, it was a lot of really excellent information. I think that even myself, I'm taking a ton of notes over here. So you guys did a great job, and we appreciate your time today. So Debbie or Danny, did you have any closing remarks before I take things back and wrap it up for the day?
No, I think we have one last polling question, though. Is that right?
We sure do. Yep, absolutely. So I will go ahead and run that. And in case
Perfect.
anyone was, putting bets on what this might be, our last poll questions is, would you like to try TSheets?
Oh, yeah.
So if everyone could just go ahead and answer that you might be interested, or whatever applies to you. Of course, we'll respect your answer here. So go ahead and run with that final poll question. I'll leave that open for a little bit longer if you guys had some closing remarks, and then I will take it back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone that's interested, we're really not pushy. It's a free trial where you can jump in, see if it works for your business. And we kind of talked about our support a little bit. So if you are interested, we'll get you up to our onboarding team. They get you when you're ready. It's a free 1 hour setup, and then usually after that 1 hour setup with integrations and everything else, you're usually ready to get started with trying it out internally. And I know out of the box, that's usually what we do with their clients, and it seems to work very, very well. And so, yeah, thank you guys just so much for joining today. I appreciate you learning a bit more, and whether you learn something about QuickBooks or TSheets or both, really appreciate that.
Excellent. Yep. And thank you guys. And it looks like there was a good third of the viewers on today who already have TSheets. So that's really
I love
exciting.
that.
And yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully what you saw today just helps you use it in a much better way, and you learn something new and all of that. So thank you guys so much again for your time. I know I learned a lot today, so I appreciate you sharing all the knowledge. And Debbie, again, I can tell how passionate you are. So I always love listening to you.
Thank you. Sometimes I'm like, wow, I need to dial that back a little bit, but it
Let
is
it
who
out,
I
Deb.
am.
No way.
Not at all.
For those 36% that are interested, you would want to contact me or Out of the Box. We can actually get you a discount. So when you're ready, just reach out and we can figure out next steps, see if you're a fit or not.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'll share your contact information, Danny, in the follow-up
Perfect.
email that everyone will get with this. So when you guys are ready, those of you who answered in that respect, you'll have that and you'll be ready to go. So, and anything that we can do to help facilitate that relationship here at Out of the Box, we're here as well. So thank
Love
you
it.
guys so much.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So with that, I'm just gonna take the screen back again just for a couple more seconds of everyone's time just to talk about what we have coming up next with Technology Tuesdays. Next week, I'm super excited. We'll have our Chief Technology Officer, Andrew Abrams, on the line, as well as our hosting manager to talk about the top reasons to host with out-of-the-box technology. So if you're interested in a hosting environment, or you have no no idea what I'm talking about, we don't host parties here, definitely join us. Andrew has such a breadth of knowledge that he's going to share with us, and reasons to host, and then why host with us here at Out of the Box, everything that we can offer you. Then we have some of our other friends coming in November from QVinci and Keep. And then Chad, who's our director of IT, will be on in December just to share some tech tips, just things to help you run more efficiently, whether it's some shortcuts on your computer or different things like that. He has so many little tips and tricks to share, so that'll be a really great event to join as well. So everyone, go ahead and register for those. Again, they're completely free, and you can earn those CPE credits for joining. And with that, I just want to say again, thank you so much. There's my contact information. If you have any questions, if you have a topic or an app that you want us to explore and share on a future Technology Tuesday, send me a line, and I will look into that and try to get you on our schedule. So again, Danny, Debbie, thank you so much, everyone who's joined us live. We appreciate your time, and we hope to see you again soon.